Okay, so today, hold on, hold on. I'm not sure what I did, but I will just share the screen first. Okay. First, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you for those of you who with us to discuss, or Noraini will discuss a little bit about Sharia auditing. So I think most of us are familiar with Zakat, our responsibility or obligation to payment of Zakat. So for banks, they are also required to pay Zakat, but the Financial Accounting Standard of IOFI actually states instances where the bank must pay Zakat on behalf of the shareholders. Okay, so I guess the general meaning of Zakat, everybody is aware, it is a compulsory levy imposed on Muslims so as to take the surplus money of wealth or wealth from the comparatively well-to-do members of the Muslim society and give it to the destitute and needed. So the literal meaning is growth or increase. So we believe that by giving zakat, our wealth is not reduced, but it shall or it will actually increase. Yeah, and then it is also the meaning of purifying. Paying zakat is purifying our sins. Yeah. Then we have the sayings from Maududi: to ensure a decent living for the people and fulfill the basic needs is in the nature of al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar, enjoining good and forbidding evil. And the Surah Al-Ma'rij 5 also talks about the need to be responsible to the poor. And you have Surah Al-Insan verse 8. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises with distinction those who feed for the love of God, the indigent, orphan, and the captive. So these are all the support for the importance of zakat for Islamic banks. And then the wealth that are subjected to zakat, so there are various types of wealth, and this wealth most carry with it a certain percentage. Not every wealth is being zakat, the zakat rate is 2.5%. So you have minerals, trade assets, agricultural produce, animals, gold and silver. So these are the general wealth that are subjected to zakat. So however, I think if I remember, those days, in my younger days, most farmers, because they actually have got produce, paddy, and they were subjected to zakat, but people with fixed income like most of us are not. So then came the ulama, and there was a fatwa that said, actually people with income should be paying zakat. So from then on, so zakat has been paid by people with wealth other than agriculture or other than what do you call it? Yeah, mostly agriculture. Gold, I think people are aware, but people with shares at that time were not subjected to zakat because there was no awareness on it and there was no fatwa on that. Yeah. So for Islamic financial institutions, because most of us are aware that they actually do have wealth, so they should be subjected to zakat. After this, we'll discuss a little bit about some issues pertaining to whether individuals only are subjected to zakat or companies are also subjected to zakat. Yeah? So the principles of zakat accounting, one is the individual right of ownership. Wealth that belongs to the government or the community or wakaf are not subjected to zakat. And then we always say zakat is being paid on assets which are based on current value. I think there was a story when where this current value becomes important. When someone asked Rasulullah, peace be upon him, how much zakat should I pay on my agricultural produce? And what he said was, whatever got now, you value it. Whatever you have, say, what is the word to say that, you know, you will harvest your agriculture products, and then at that point you value it and you pay zakat on it. So based on that, scholars have said that zakat should be paid on current value. Yeah. So I guess this is to show the most accurate value for that particular asset. The yearly principal, assets should be owned for 1 full year, or one how. However, if we are talking about companies use the Gregorian calendar, not the lunar year. So it is normally 11 days more than our how. So therefore, based on that, the standard also says that it is not 2.5%. If we use the Gregorian calendar, it should then be 2.5775%. So that is the ruling or the standard on zakat. So anyway, these are the principles: ability to pay. Of course, we all know that in the case of individuals, the state, in Malaysia, the state determines what is the nisab. And beyond that, you pay the zakat. And then full disclosure, zakat computation must be true and fair. Zakat payers need truthfully disclose all of his financial facts. Now, I do not know about you. When I pay zakat, the zakat officer never asks me how much wealth do you have, and let me calculate for you. So most zakat officers regard us as being truthful. So because Allah also promises, if you pay more, it's all right, but do not pay less, isn't it? So therefore, there is no need for zakat officers, for individuals at least, to actually ask you how much wealth do you have, because they know for sure that a true Muslim will not shortchange Allah. Okay, so and then the full disclosure, this one is talking about companies. In the case of companies or Islamic banks, one of the issues that we face is, would audited financial statements be reliable for determination of zakat? Some people say because it is based on historical value, it may not be. Other people say that's more objective, so therefore that is okay. So I mean that can be an issue to be discussed. So objectivity, measurement must be objective and quantifiable. So this is the other issue. We say we want current value, but current value can be very subjective. If we want it to be objective, it will be the historical cost. So again, you know, scholars are debating on this. Why do we need current values? I guess this is to ensure that both zakat payers and zakat recipients would not be unduly disadvantaged. Yeah? So I think you can identify when zakat payers will be disadvantaged and when zakat payers would be at a disadvantage. Yeah. Okay. And then zakat on trade wealth. These are the verses from the Quran. And then Abu Dawud reports from Samura ibn Jundub, the Prophet ﷺ used to order us to pay sadaqah from what we have for sale. So this is all talking about the importance of paying zakat. Yeah. And then the AAOIFI has come out with a standard on zakat, FAS 9. So why do we need a standard on zakat? So it's basically like all standards is for consistency, comparability, and compliance. The scope of the standard, just how zakat base is determined, and then how items are included in the zakat base, then the valuation, and the disclosure requirements. So the standard is not too difficult. So it is, or it was effective on the 1st January of 1999. However, in many Muslim countries, the standards serve only as guidelines. Malaysia actually uses it as a guideline because we have our own technical release, I1, that deals with zakat. So why are Islamic banks not using this standard? Because each country is different. Like for us, it is more the central bank guidelines that we follow, and the MASB. So that's why MASB, Malaysian Accounting Standards Board, issued the technical release I1 just to cater for zakat. Okay, so that's what I said just now about the calendar year. If you use the lunar year, then it is 2.5%. Most companies, their accounting year is 365 days using the Gregorian calendar. So this would be the rate that is to be used by those companies. This is in the standard. The standard also specifies two methods. One is the net assets method, and the other is the net invested funds method. Using both, actually both will give you the same answer. It's just that looking at it from different. So if you have this fixed asset as FACA, the current liability as CL, long-term liability, share capital, and retained earnings. So if you have an equation where fixed asset plus current asset equals to current liability plus long-term liability plus share capital plus retained earnings, what you need to do is just to get the net working capital here, or net assets, current assets minus current liability, and then all this, you minus your fixed asset. This is the net invested funds method, and this is the net assets method. Okay, so if you calculate using this method and then using this method, you'll get the same amount because this is an equation, right? Okay, the zakat base, that's what I have just mentioned. And then what are the assets that are subjected to zakat? Fixed assets are not subjected to zakat. So these assets acquired for trading, financing assets, those the mudarabah, musyarakah that we went through, these are the assets of the bank. These are all zakatable. Cash and cash equivalents, receivables, net of doubtful debts or bad debts. So these are assets subjected to zakat. And then you have to deduct all the current liabilities, unrestricted investment account, any amount owned by the government or owned by endowment funds, charities, these are all non-zakatable. So that's why you have to deduct. So if you use the net invested funds method, it's just the other way, where you get all this equity, paid up capital, reserves, retained earnings, and you have to deduct the fixed assets and any long-term investments. There is this issue, because we say fixed assets are not zakatable. What is zakatable is just working capital. Now, most of us are familiar with investments like amanah saham, the unit trust. Now, people have asked, for unit trust, if you put in 1 million, you get a dividend, say if it's 10%, you get 100,000. Will your zakat be on the 1 million or 100,000? If you ask scholars, they have mixed views on this. Some say it should be on the dividends. Some say it should be on the capital you invested or the investment. So that is another issue that we may discuss later, because some of you may be well versed in fiqh matters. So this is one issue that I think is not resolved, because when people say that it is zakatable on only the income, they are treating that investment as a fixed asset. So as fixed assets go, they are not zakatable. But some people say, no, that's your wealth. So therefore, you should actually pay zakat on that. So AOFI, when you talk about the valuation, it says market value. But AOFI also mentions something like if you cannot do it with reasonable certainty or objectivity, is compromised. So you may use the historical cost. Okay, the disclosure requirements, FAS 9 indicates that the method that you use for zakat base, the determining zakat base should be included. The ruling of the Sharia board on issues related to zakat that are not included in the standard. So maybe this one, Dr. Noor can give some examples where what is not in the standard is being decided by the Sharia committee of the bank. So if that is so, they say you should disclose. Statement on whether or not the Islamic bank pays its share of zakat obligation of its subsidiaries. So like Bank Islam has subsidiaries, so whether they are paying on behalf of their other subsidiaries. In the case where the Islamic bank does not pay zakat, the amount of zakat due should also be disclosed. I think this is primarily to indicate to the shareholders or the investment account holders how much zakat they should pay. Because if the bank is not paying, you have to pay. If the bank pays, then you don't have to pay. Okay, and then whether or not the Islamic bank collects and pays zakat on behalf of holders of investment accounts, this all should be indicated in the annual report. Any restrictions imposed by the Sharia Supervisory Board of the Islamic Bank in determining zakat base. So for some reason, if the standard says you use current values, but the Sharia committee of the bank says you have to use historical cost because there's no way we can be objective on that. So I guess that is an issue that should be disclosed in your annual report. The disclosure requirements, of course, they always have this statement where the disclosure requirements of FAS 1 should be observed, besides the FAS 9. Okay, now some of these emerging issues, I think is very interesting. Like one, we say that if you look at the Quran, it says the individuals have to pay zakat. So when does a company pay zakat? So I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a decision made at a conference in Mecca where they say a company is regarded as a legal entity, as a legal person, hence companies should also pay zakat. Yeah. So incentive to pay. Now in Malaysia, if you pay zakat, you can deduct from your income tax that you are liable to pay. So companies, they want that. So at the moment, companies can only deduct 2.5% of the zakat that they have paid. They offset it against their corporate tax. Okay, and then mixed ownership. Sometimes, they have non-Muslim shareholders, and they say, I do not want to pay zakat because it's not obligatory for me. So then, how do we determine how much zakat that particular organization has to pay? So of course, what you need to do is you just get the percentage of Muslim share ownership, and then you multiply by the total amount of zakat. Then you just take a portion. This is the other question that I've raised earlier. Are conventional audited financial statements relevant for zakat measurement? To some, they say it's not because it is mostly historical, but there are companies that actually have got assets that are valued at current values. Yeah, but they don't do it every year. I know of some companies. They actually revalue every 3 years because it costs a lot. Yeah, and then another issue is whether zakat that you have determined and calculated should be treated as an expense or an appropriation. For Malaysia, according to the technical release, I1 is treated as an expense, but AOFI treats it as an appropriation. Yeah, so I think if you are familiar with one work done by Professor Ahya Ahnan and Bariza from our university. According to that, it should be treated as an appropriation, because an appropriation, it shows that you know what is going to be given to the shareholders as dividends, and then what else? What is being given to God is zakat. So therefore, they say it should be treated as an appropriation. Okay. This one, obligations to pay should be charged directly to the shareholders and depositors. So some scholars are of the view that actually banks need not pay. The shareholders and depositors should calculate and pay themselves. Yeah, but sometimes shareholders insist that banks should pay on their behalf. So in FAS 9, they specifically indicated that if the law requires them pay, so if say for us is the IFSA 2013, if they say that the Islamic banks must pay, then Islamic banks have got to pay. Or if it is required by its charter or bylaws, the MA and the AA, Memorandum of Association and the Articles of Association. Or they say when the AGM pass a resolution which require them to pay. So in these three situations, the Islamic banks must pay. Yeah. Then of course, if the Islamic bank pays zakat, then the shareholders and depositors need not pay again. Yeah. So this is the technical release I1 that MASB issued, and they also indicate what or how zakat should be determined. And then based on the National Fatwa Council, they say although the accounting year is 365 days, consists of 365 days, we still have just 2.5% of zakat pays. If you follow strictly FAS 9, AAOIFI standard on zakat, they say if it is based on the Gregorian calendar, it should be 2.5775, right? Okay. And then of course the zakat base that they use is, it is similar. Working capital, which we said net assets method, and then the adjusted growth method. So the differences between these two, for MASB's technical release I1, it is for all businesses, not specific just to Islamic banks. Whereas AAOIFI, they are talking about standards for Islamic bank. The measurement, the same measurement that are being used by companies. If it is book value, it's book value. Whereas for FAS 9, they actually mentioned that it should be a cash equivalent value for the assets, and for the liabilities, you can use the book value. And 2.5% for Malaysians TRI1. And for AAOIFI, they mentioned if you use the HAL Muslim calendar, you have to pay 2.5, otherwise you have to pay more. Okay, so that is a very short discussion on zakat. So maybe some of you may want to raise some issues that we can all learn from each other. So I can now pass to Dr. Noraini for a sneak preview on her book on Sharia governance and Sharia auditing, yeah, Dr. No? So I pass you to Dr. Noraini.
Okay, thank you, Amalia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Okay, I think I need to share my screen.
Okay, let me just stop the sharing. Okay, no, I'm all right now.
Actually not in the existing textbook that we have shared for this 7 week. This is actually in the draft book that I have written also under IIIT. So this just maybe a teaser to all the participants lah. Maybe later you can also somehow get a copy of my textbook on this governance and also auditing and governance of Islamic financial institutions. So just make doa that I can complete can edit the book as soon as possible so that I can give to IIIT for the publication. So just a very short coverage on this Syara audit, and I think we need also some time for us to discuss about zakat from all the participants. So before I can go to Syara audit, what I need to share here is the impacts of Syara non-compliant. So what happened when we talk about all the syarah content that we have discussed so far, we have talked about mudarabah, musyarakah, murabahah, ijarah, salam, istisna, as well as zakat. So I think if there's any syarah non-compliant in this Islamic financial institution, the impact is actually very big because number one, the reputation of the industry will be affected and the bank also will be affected. And this also will reduce the confidence of the customers. That's number one. Number two, contract entered and made shall becomes null and void. And this will result that the profit or income generated from that particular transactions will be declared non-halal or syarah non-compliant and to be channeled to charity. So this is what we call in accounting the recognition of income. Okay, and then the last one is also another big impact to the industry because that also can lead to legal costs. Okay, so syarah non-compliant actually we define as the risk that arise from the failure of this Islamic financial institution to comply with the Sharia rules and principles, and this also part of operational risk. I think there's also a lot of discussion on the risk. I can just stop to tell you that syarah non-compliant is part of the operational risk and also very critical to the IIIT. So I think where the syarah audit will be parked is under the third line of defense. So this is actually very popular concept under risk management when we talk about the importance of to comply with certain regulation. And here we are talking about Sharia compliant. So the first line of defense will be the owner of that particular department or the owner of that risk, meaning that the department. So they also have to ensure their department comply with Sharia. The second line of defense, normally we talk about the review and also the risk management. And then the Sharia audit is under the third line of defense. So that is more independent assessment, objective assurance to ensure Sharia compliance. So second line is not really independent. The most independent function will be Sharia audit. So this what happened in the Islamic financial institution, in particular in Malaysia. Because we have this Sharia Governance Policy 2019 is the latest one. This actually supersedes the 2010 Sharia Governance Framework, and this already effective now. I think this actually the frame, the policy that all the Islamic financial institutions are using. So under this particular Sharia Governance Framework, Sharia Governance Policy 2019, they just mentioned about these three important functions: Sharia risk management, Sharia review, and Sharia audit. So I think everything here I also have discussed in my new book talking about the role of all these functions. So we are just, I just would like just to share on Sharia audits. So what is Sharia audit? Sharia audit is actually the function that provide an independent assessment on the quality and effectiveness of the IIIT, internal control, risk management, as well as the system, governance, process, and the overall compliance of the IIIT on the, with the Sharia. Okay, and who actually responsible for the Sharia audit? According to Bank Negara Sharia Governance Policy document, will be internal audit, but we need to have dedicated Sharia auditor to perform this Sharia audit. Okay, and the knowledge or the qualification of the Sharia auditor according to the Sharia Governance Policy document as well must be qualified and also must have the requisite knowledge on Sharia requirements applicable to Islamic financial business. So Sharia auditor will not normally come from Sharia background, but they must have the knowledge on Sharia for them to be able to perform Sharia audit. And most of the time we prefer those from accounting background because they have learned audit or they have learned the normal audit, but then now they have to apply to the Sharia audit. Okay, so under this one, under the Sharia Governance Policy document 2019, the Sharia audit must establish audit methodology. It is similar to the normal audit plan, audit program, and the result will be communicated to the board, which is the audit committee, and Syarah committee throughout an audit report. So this is just the role of this function. So what's the process to conduct Syarah audit will start from the planning. So I think this is actually similar to the normal audit. But the only thing is the reference here is the Syarah rulings. When the normal audit being done for the financial statement, the reference will be the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard, or in the case of Bahrain, AAOIFI. But when we talk about Syarah audit, the reference will be the Syarah rulings. So the first stage is the planning stage. So where they plan, they have to select the sample, they have to understand the business, and then only they will go to the field to conduct Syarah audit. That's what we call the execution stage. Then the third stage is the reporting stage, where they report what they found from this audit, whether there's a Syarah non-compliant findings or not. And the last stage will be the follow-up stage, where they have to follow up from the findings, whether ratification has been done completely or partly, and so on. Okay, so I just give an example. If you want to audit or to do Syarah audit on Murabaha, I think from Malia session, I think you have, I mean, those who attended that session has learned about this, the Murabah contract, what actually this contract. So when Syarah audit would like to check this Murabaha, then they have to put some checklist. So this just example maybe will not be limited to this checklist. So we will have, for example, the profile of customers, whether the customer use the money from the bank for the Syarah compliant activities, whether the goods exist or not, because under Murabaha, the bank must buy the good first, or buy the asset first, and then only sell the asset to the customer. And under Murabaha, you also need to know the cost plus markup. So everything must be transparent. So in the agreement, they must also mention the cost and also the markup. So the Syarah auditor will check whether the cost is mentioned on the agreement between the bank and the customer, and whether the markup also has been disclosed in that particular agreement. And then the payment schedule. The sequence of the transaction also very important when we conduct Syarah audit, because we want to ensure that the Islamic bank buy first the asset before the Islamic bank sell to the customers. And what happens if they delay in payment? So the clause must be also clear in the agreement. For example, to have this late payment charges, ta'awid 1%, garamah more than 1%, channel to charity. So if this one is not clear, then can become the findings. And this is ijarah. So they want to also about the same. Because ijarah also the bank must buy the asset first before the bank can rent the asset to the customers. So the Syarah auditor will check whether there's ownership of this asset by the bank, and whether the asset actually lawful asset or lawful goods and services, and then what happened to the rental, who bear the maintenance cost, the scope of transaction, the late payment charges. So this will be some of the checklist that Syarah auditor can prepare before they can conduct Syarah audit. So that's mainly my introduction to this. So what I can see from here, Syarah audit is very important to ensure compliance to Syariah, because they are the third law of defense and more independent, and their finding normally will be very significant to the institution. So I think that's mainly what I would like to share here on the Syarah audit. So maybe now we can open to the question from the participants. And since this is our last session for the webinar for this topic, maybe we can entertain more questions tonight. Okay, Promala will answer the question. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think the topic is very relevant, very important. Zakat.
Just assist Brother Sharan. Later we will have to have one session on the new book.
Yeah, inshallah.
Mashallah.
I think go ahead, Brother Afrad.
Nah, Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Sahran. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Noraini and Prof. Maya. Yeah, what I would like to ask you is about some questions, and please give us your opinions. In the chapter or in the presentation about Sharia audit, you mentioned that the most independent is the Sharia audit rather than the two line of defense. And I think there are more independent party that is beyond internal Sharia audit. It is external Sharia audit, independent external Sharia audit beyond the bank, because internal Sharia audit also have KPI and they are subject to bonus and etc. And then the second question or maybe statement in the chat, somebody asked about whether salary is object of zakat or not. Based on IIIT Sharia standard number 35, it is not a Sharia object. Salary is not one of zakah object. And then if we see the differences between FIS 9 and Sharia standard number 35, both are from IIIT, there seem a lot of differences regarding the number of page, the number of pages. If you see in the Sharia standard, IIIT explain more than 29 pages from current asset into current liabilities. You may see it whether an asset is zakat asset or not. And in FIS 9, there are only 3 pages. So we have to refer to IIIT Sharia standard to get a more comprehensive information regarding the zakatable asset or non-zakatable asset. So yeah, please share us your opinion regarding my 3 comments or questions. Thank you, Prof. Noraini and Maria.
Okay, Pramada, can I respond first?
Yeah.
Pramada can unmute. You have to unmute, Pramada.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pronan. Go ahead
Thank
first.
you, thank you, Brother Afrad, for the comment on that Sharia audit part. I mean, you talk about very important point with regard to who can best conduct Sharia audit. Okay, so yes, I think when we talk about the requirement in Malaysia, for example, in the Bank Negara Sharia Governance Policy document, they mention clearly that the Sharia audit must be conducted by internal auditor. We expect internal audit also to be independent in also other situations. So that's normally what happens in the institution. Internal auditor, normally should be independent. But again, if, for example, the bank did not satisfy with the performance of that internal auditor, the board is not happy on the effectiveness of the Sharia audit. According to the policy document, also they mentioned that the board may appoint external party to conduct Sharia audit. And even Bank Negara can also interfere and also require the bank to also engage external party if they feel that the effectiveness of that Sharia audit is not there. Meaning that there's no finding, it's not independent and so on. So that also is allowed under the framework or under the policy. And it even transparent. Okay.
Can I interject, Dr. Noraini?
Sure.
I think Brother Afrad, why we rely on internal auditors is because our external auditors now are not competent. Let's say they do not have we don't have a lot of external auditors with adequate knowledge to audit Islamic banks. Sharia auditing. Undertake Sharia auditing. So therefore, the internal auditors, they are the ones who are actually, no doubt they are not independent, but the expertise is there. I think eventually the external auditors will take over because we want that independence. So therefore, right now, because of that issue. So as and when we have more, I think we will have external auditors because I see that independence is very important to me. So that is my personal opinion. Dr. No, you want to say something?
No,
on
it's okay.
Sharia auditing?
I have answered the question, so maybe you
Yeah.
can respond for, Brother Afrad, second and third comment.
That one is on zakat. You were saying that the zakat standard, AOFI's FAS 9, it is not as comprehensive as what you have in Sharia auditing, Sharia standard 35. So that I have to admit, that is my weakness. I do not go to the Sharia standard and compare. So this, I think you have pointed out twice to me about the standards that are sometimes not consistent. So therefore, I think we have to look at that Sharia standard and then compare with the accounting standard. Yeah, and you were just saying about that, how comprehensive, isn't it? What was the other question,
On
brother
salary,
Afra?
right, Brother Afrad? On
Oh,
salary.
salary. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was one participant talking about salary. Yeah, that's what I said. You know, long time ago, for our salary, we never even thought about paying zakat. However, I think there is a fatwa that says actually our income, because I mean, we are well to do. We have fixed income. We should be paying. Last time it was the farmers that were paying, you know. I remember a long time ago, people were not aware. Now people are being made aware. You have to pay zakat, right? So, but last time there was never. And I think they have done a good thing here. And the Majlis Agama Islam is doing a great job in trying to tell people that this is your obligation, and then you should pay. Yeah. I think in some other countries they don't have to pay on their salary. I'm not sure. I think I would like to, or we would like to hear from other countries. What about Indonesia? Indonesia, do they pay on their salary? They do pay. Okay, yeah. But I think some other countries may not. So I'm
Okay, Prof. This one question from Brother Al Hassan. If the Sharia bank pay zakat, can the shareholder or customer pay another zakat?
Oh, sure. Zakat, you can pay more, but you cannot pay less. So therefore, if you are a customer and you feel that I don't think the bank is calculating correctly, I want to pay on my own, that's fine. I think paying more is okay. But the fact is, if they are not paying for you, the standard actually requires that the bank indicate how much they should be paying so that you can take that portion and pay out of your own pocket. You can calculate, and that's very important. I think if the Islamic bank is not paying, they must show how much they should be paying. So the shareholders and the investment account holders can actually pay on their own.
If I can add, I think when it comes to Malaysian Islamic Bank, what happened is that most of the Islamic Bank did not pay on behalf of their customers. I think the customer must pay their own zakat. So that's also what actually happening in Malaysia, maybe not in other countries. So I think just sharing what happened in Malaysia. Right?
Brother Imran, go ahead. Brother Imran
Assalamu
Ahmad.
alaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Waalaikumsalam.
No, I just wanted to add that, like in a country like South Africa, where we are, we don't pay zakah on our salaries. Muslims here generally they work out their own zakah, and that's a big problem here amongst Muslims, and that's why I find a lot of Muslims are still living in poverty. How can we change that?
Are you talking about South Africa? But I thought South Africa, the Muslims are doing very well. Most of them are businessmen, you know. But in any case, if you are talking about South African Muslims, because you know, like for us, the state actually takes over that responsibility. Yeah. But for South Africa, perhaps the Muslim Association there should actually take an active role as far as zakat is concerned. Yeah, I know people in Australia also, they don't have to pay zakat, they just pay taxes. But in Malaysia, it's very unique. You pay zakat, but you offset against your tax liability. The reason why I think we should, as a salary earner, pay zakat, because we are not in poverty. So it is our duty to pay part of what we have and then give it to the poor. Now there is another issue on zakat. You know, some people say zakat should be paid individually, not go through an administrator. Like we have Majlis Agama Islam or pejabat zakat. They say we should give individually. That means there are two advantage. There is an advantage in giving individually, because when you give individually, the ukhuwah will somehow be strengthened because you know the poor people yourself, and then you pay. But if you do that in Malaysia, you cannot offset it against your tax. That's one. The other thing, we actually put this question to the Mufti, and we asked him, is it better for us to pay on our own because we know who are the poor people? He said, you can, but if you are paying to a person who is not actually an asnaf, because if you pay it to Majlis will know who are the asnaf. But if you do not, I mean, if you pay and that person is not an asnaf, your obligation is still not satisfied. So there is the danger there. So what he's saying is that it is better to pay to an administrator, and they would actually plan how to disburse it to the asnaf. So that's according to him lah. But I know of some people, they still pay on their own because they feel that I know the poor better than the administrators. Like the brother in South Africa is saying, if you have, there's a lot of poverty in South Africa, but even here in Malaysia, there are a lot of poverty also because zakat is not reached to those people, perhaps. I do not know. Because this is an interesting study to look at how those zakat recipients have come out from their poverty level. So that's another issue. I think on Friday I'll be discussing about this what do you call it, disbursement of zakat money. How you disburse now, no more cash. Now you have a lot of other ways to disburse the zakat money. So that is from our research in our Majlis Agama Islam on Friday at 3:30 p.m. Jakarta time. 2:30 p.m. Jakarta time. We will be discussing about that. Even one from Indonesia and one from Malaysia. Yeah. So that is the issue lah with zakat poverty level. Whether a lot of people have come out from that level, we do not know. No concrete study to show that with zakat the poverty level has improved, or rather a lot of people have come out from that poverty level. Not many have done that research.
Prof, can you explain again about the company paying zakat?
A company paying zakat?
Yeah, why? What is the motivation? Because of tax relief or?
Okay. But because right now in Malaysia, what we are encouraging is that, like the Muslim businesses, they should be paying zakat in order to help the poor, the ummah. But their motivation, there is no motivation right now, except that there are banks, I think banks, right, Dr. No, or some companies, when they pay, they can take 25% or 50%, depending on which majlis, and they can disburse on their own. So that is then that money, they can use it as part of their CSR. So states, I think Perlis gives back 50%. Selangor, I think 25% back to the company. So I think as a company, if you have, I mean, this is a Muslim, owned by Muslims, I think there is that incentive lah. You are actually fulfilling your obligation as a Muslim, and then on the other hand, you get back the money, and you can also disburse on your own. So that is the incentive that Majlis Agama Islam in Malaysia are doing to encourage companies to pay zakat. So other than that, I think the deduction I told you, they only get 2.5%. Dr. No, if I'm not mistaken, 2.5% only they get, whereas the corporate tax is about 25%. So they don't get like individuals. They are fighting for it. I think if they have such a policy, I think more companies will be doing it. We are talking about Muslim-owned businesses, not non-Muslim owned. Yeah.
We have a long.
There is a question. Sorry, there is a question, Brother Sharan, from Sister Bibi Jan. She was asking about the awareness. I'm not sure. I don't see it now. She was saying about awareness. I think if you are in Malaysia, I think it's okay. There's a lot of awareness. But if you are in, say, Australia, so the organization that should actually play an active role is the Muslim organizations. They should be the one moving this thing, yeah. This is part of social finance, so they should actually move this thing along. Yeah. Sorry, Brother Sharan, you go ahead.
Okay. We have a long comment from few brothers and sisters. The simple question from Kaba, is the payment of zakat mandatory for farmers or people that keep cattle, such as goat, sheep, and cow?
Actually, it is mandatory if it is above a certain nisab. So I'm not an expert on this, but maybe Brother Afrad can tell us, because you know, if you have cattle, if you have agriculture produce, you have to pay zakat on what you harvest. So therefore, you have to. Cattle, yeah, I guess you have to. If it is, you know, it's very difficult for me, because I actually only focus on Islamic banks. So if Dr. No, do you know about cattle?
Yeah, I think for
Animals.
cattle, they also have
Animals.
different requirement
Rates.
for different type of cattle. So I think they have to also ensure the nisab, also the amount will be different from, for example, cow. Also, what else? It depend on the cattle that they have. Like, I think that's actually what happened in cattle. I mean, that's my limited knowledge on that. Okay.
I think this cattle and cow is very established already. There are many references. I know my father used to rear cattle and give zakat after 40, after 30.
Yeah.
I think they have the amount also, Brother Sharan, right? They have also the amount to be.
When you harvest paddy, then you know how much.
You have a table, Brother Sharan. There was a table. Actually, when I was doing my PhD, I did that table. Yeah.
This is very established.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think one Brother Habibu Yunusa said about the standard. If you can give me your email, I can send you the standard. But yeah, one thing about AAOIFI standards, you cannot download it. But the recent ones you can. But like Zakat standards, all you have to buy. But I can give it to you if you want. Give me your email. I can send you the Zakat standard. But I don't have the Sharia standard. Brother Afrad may have. Yeah, Brother Afrad, the Sharia standard.
Okay, Prof. Before we invite you for final word, I just want to add, now in Malaysia, they also allow zakat fund to go to sisters who are being trapped in prison or in fights. Some of these criminal, they put you in ransom. So now they allow using zakat money to free these sisters from this very horrible situation. I think this is very positive. They're like a modern slavery. So you want to free someone out of debt or out of that such situation. This is very encouraging.
Yeah.
This group of people.
Yeah, I think that one, Brother Sharan, it will come under fisabilillah, is it?
Yeah.
Because you know there are a lot of fisabilillah. If you look at the accounts of the majlis, if you know the 8 asnaf, the fisabilillah, everything that that they cannot put under other categories, they'll put under fisabilillah. So I guess the
People in
freeing
debt.
those people from debts, yeah.
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 Okay, Prof. Final words for tonight. We start with you, Prof. And then
Yeah, okay. I would really like to thank the participants and for sharing the knowledge that you have, and for me sharing my limited knowledge with all of you. And I hope to meet again at some other platforms. And thank you very much for being here. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
And
Prof.
thank you,
Noraini.
IIIT.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you to all the participants. Thank you to IIIT for giving us the opportunity to be here. So Alhamdulillah, I think we have finished our 7 sessions. So we hope that somehow the participant benefit from the sessions. And actually, I myself also learned a lot from this webinar or these sessions. So thank you all, and thank you, Brother Sharan.
Okay. Actually, I think Prof. Noraini and Prof. Mela also offered a professional course on this. Is it short training for the bank, for professional, is it for this one? Accounting for Islamic Bank. If you have that kind of module like Foundation for Islamic Economics, we can arrange like a 3 days intensive for selected a serious one. I mean, in the future, so that those who are really want to put their hand, we can organize, inshallah. Talk to you.
I'm interested also on Syara audit, Brother Sharan. So if I
Syara audit.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
can,
think,
yeah.
I
This
think
is more
Dr.
professional, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. No's book is coming out, inshallah. Why I know, because yeah, it already is coming. So I would like to advertise Dr. No's book. There's a gun, so I will advertise. It's coming soon, inshallah. Okay.
So that
I'm doing the correction now from Malia.
so that we can open
Okay.
up for those who are like 40 or 50 who really in the business, can have it online. Maybe we charge a small fee, just a commitment. Make it serious.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Okay.
Prof. Noraini, Prof.
Okay.
Malia. We'll
Okay.
see you again.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes,
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Bye.